Good morning. My name is Reverend Tamara Merrill, and I am a minister here at the Centers for Spiritual Living in Santa Cruz. My title topic today is called The Third Way. Science of mind has really evolved over the years. It focused a lot on our intellectual capacities and then to our emotional capacity. So from the head to the heart. And now our next step in our evolution in this philosophy is about going from the me, which was about our personal growth, to the we. And the we is our collective. And at this time in our evolution, our spiritual evolution, it's about committing to our vision that we have, that a world that works for everyone includes doing the work as a we. In understanding our spiritual nature, only then can we understand humanity. I believe that spiritual growth is all about relationships. Relationships to everything in the world, to all living things, and even in the invisible. My challenge in this, in my spiritual growth, is about my unhealed beliefs. And it's usually about my fellow human beings. Dr. Beckwith talks about being guided by our inner spiritual practices. And I found this quote to be very inspiring. Dr. Beckwith says, authentic evolutionary leaders are guided by their inner spiritual practice. They lead with their heart, live by their values each and every day. And they maintain a beginner's mind of teachability, receptivity, humility, and they are ever available to new insights and also to new revelations. I would like to think of us, you and I, as spiritual warriors in a spiritual revolution. What are the tools as a spiritual warrior? What are our best practices of our principles of oneness? I think one of them is to cultivate empathy. Another, never be against people, but only against problems. Be committed to reawaken humanity in our opponents. Stop seeing others as our enemy. Be committed to healing false beliefs in our spiritual work. Let me go on to say that it's so exciting that in the 20th century, the discoveries in quantum reality shows that nothing is separate as it seems. A good deal of evidence suggests that empathy and cooperation are dominant forces in our evolution. Humans and primates are equipped with mirror neurons that enable us to share what another is feeling. And in that self-sacrifice can produce intense rewards in our nervous system. I call this the third way. It requires us to outgrow our present image of ourselves as separate and physical and competitive humans. I want to share a story that impacted my life as a young 18-year-old. I finished high school and I went into my first semester at a junior college, and I didn't do so well. I wanted to play, and I didn't want to get serious about life. And my parents talked it over, and they decided to send me to Brazil to live with my 27-year-old brother. As an 18-year-old, I boarded a plane. It broke down twice, going through Guatemala, Panama and Guatemala. And I learned so much about trust as I moved through that. I went to live with my brother. He was 27 years old. I lived in Porto Alegre, Brazil. And my brother was a workaholic, so he'd leave at 7 in the morning and come home at 7 o'clock at night. I had signed up to go to school there, but it wasn't time yet. So I had a month or so of being in a country alone, not speaking the language, and really struggling with the loneliness that I felt. There were no supermarkets in the town we lived in, but there were markets, neighborhood markets. And in those neighborhood markets, you would have the pig slaughtered upside down, the fish, and so the smells were very strong. And my brother had sent me to go get food for dinner. Now, coming from the 1970s, the mid-1970s, when I went to make spaghetti, I got the dry spaghetti and the cans of spaghetti sauce and put it in a pot. Well, there's no such thing there. There's tomatoes to make tomato sauce, and you have to make your own pasta. Well, that was just totally left field for my 18-year-old brain. So when I went to the store, all I bought was oranges and cookies, you know. So as I was leaving the store, 4 little boys, ranging between 5 and 9 years old, you know, came up to me and said hello in Portuguese. And I said hello in English. And then I was a rock star because I was an American. So I developed this relationship with these 4 young boys playing soccer with a flattened soccer ball in the street. They were a little disheveled. You know, they're a little dirty, but they're little boys, you know. So I decided to share my oranges with them. And they knew every Beatles song that ever was sung and could sing those Beatles songs in perfect English. So we sang Beatles songs, we sat on the curb, and we ate oranges. And it became a ritual that every day they were my friends. I would go buy cookies or I would go buy bread and cheese, and I would share whatever I had with these little boys, 4 little boys. They never asked me for anything other than to spend time and whatever snack I had of the day. About two or 3 weeks later, my brother came home upset with me and said the neighbors saw me with street children and that street children are extremely dangerous and could be, you know, can cause harm to people because they were known to steal things. And I was like, well, those aren't my little boys, you know. So I continued to share food and enjoy their company. And one day I asked them, where do you live? So I wasn't sure if they were street children or just, you know, very poor. And so they took me about a block away to an abandoned bus. And there I realized that these 4 children lived in a bus. There was a 12-year-old and I think a 14-year-old, a little bit older, that lived with them also. No home. I was mortified, you know, and I couldn't believe how it touched my heart that they were surviving on the streets. And we look at our homeless people in this country, these were homeless children. And the orphanage system wasn't very good. It was overwhelmed with all the orphans in Brazil. Shortly thereafter, about a month in, the little boys disappeared. And I went to look for them in the hollow bus. The bus was gone. It was taken away. The merchants had complained that they were stealing, and they were trying to chase the children out of the neighborhood so that they wouldn't have any more theft. And after that, there was this horrible incident where the police all over Brazil were paid by the merchants to get rid of the children, not only to move them on to another neighborhood, but to actually create a genocide where they killed thousands of children, orphan children, in Brazil, in the cities. I wondered what happened to my little 4 ones, you know? And I was so devastated, I asked my brother, well, what can we do? One of my brother's friends said that there was an orphanage outside of town that really helped orphans by taking them in on a farm, raising pigs. Churches would donate clothes from like the United States and monies so that they could learn a trade and be in a safe environment. My parents, myself, and my brother decided to donate to that orphanage for over 20 years. I never did see my wonderful 4 little boys, but they left an impact, and I took action. And that difference, I always hope, touched their hearts. But we must start looking at a third way out of our problems. Andrew Young says, be committed to make a way out of no way. Modern culture does not prepare us to understand a non-material positive force in the world, but that's what speaks to our instinctive spirit and soul. During this COVID virus, it's really amazing to me that something so microscopic that we cannot see with the naked eye has turned our world and our society upside down on its head. And yet, through our evolution, scientists can remove what they call an RNA code from this microscopic virus, place the code in our arm, and have our body read that code and build antibodies to fight the virus. Last year, I talked about the really interesting scientific discoveries of how they make viruses dormant. And one of them was they made the HIV virus dormant, and they put it, a large dose of it, in men who had brain tumors, inoperable brain tumors. Within 2 weeks of a very high fever, the HIV dormant virus, which means you cannot get HIV from it, attacked the cancer in the brain and ate that cancer in 2 weeks. Because the body sees the cancer as a friendly foe, that it lets it grow and grow. And when the HIV virus came in, it destroyed the brain tumor in 2 weeks. They also took the measles virus, made that dormant, and put it in children with certain types of leukemia. And again, if the children survived the high temperatures that it created in the body, when the body was fighting the measles virus against the cancer, the leukemia, they would be totally free of cancer within 2 weeks. So where are the blessings in that? It's a miracle that the invisible world that we deal with has so much impact and power. The third way of our invisible power is so that we can align ourselves with the instinctive truth of our true nature, and that is love. Love is a fundamental energy like gravity. It is not about love and hate, peace and war, violence and nonviolence, fight or flight. We are neither running away from fear or attacking in anger using the third way, but resisting in love. There is no win or loss, just the ability to grow, because love is more than hearts and flowers. It is the integrating force that holds the whole universe together. When we talk about love, it's not, this is a do-nothing approach. Because it takes, as a spiritual warrior, our minds and our emotions to be habitually trained to the higher truth of our being in order to change our consciousness. There's a story in the Nonviolence Handbook, the Nonviolence Handbook, and it's for the children. And so what they did is they got a puppet of a coyote and a puppet of a giraffe to show how when one only has the perspective or the worldview of whatever's in front of them, they can't see the higher truth. The giraffe has a higher view for a worldview to see more of what's happening. Also, which I did not know about giraffes, if giraffes have these little knobs on their tongue, so they're able to eat thorns and dissolve the thorns into nutritious food for themselves. That's my commitment. The thorns, the thoughts that aren't compassionate and kind, to be able to dissolve them on my tongue because I'm habitually practicing the principles. Our trained spiritual thoughts of kindness and compassion give way to the divine. Ernest Holmes talks about evil very little, but what he does say is impactful, I think. Ernest says, evil is not the opposite of good. It is the absence of life. Evil can exist as a relative fact, but only as a temporary fact, not a spiritual truth. The third way, cultivating empathy. It is the force of the invisible presence of love to conquer all destructible forces. Do your work on a spiritual practice as if humanity depended upon it. Be a way shower to the invisible, spiritual power that is our spirit and our soul. Our science keeps telling us from the 20th century that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, just transformed. We're in the business of transformation. In our work in transformation, that is where we become the spiritual warrior in this spiritual revolution. Reverend Deborah Johnson shared with me many years ago about how the drama happens with the ego. And that is, there's always a 3-part drama with our ego. In most stories, human stories, there's always a villain, a victim, and a hero. And many times, we have found ourselves in all 3 in different situations. As a villain, someone thinks we are not okay. As a victim, oh my goodness, I have been there. Somebody else hurt me. And as a hero, don't we all want to be the hero of our own story? The problem with being a hero is that it's from an ego concept of me and not we. We all need to see each other as heroes. We need a new story of humanity and a new story for our human destiny, written in love and compassion. We have work to do because it takes so much to train our thinking and change the beliefs that don't align with the truth of who we are. This year, I've had a lot of losses. Well, actually last year, 2020. And I'm sure there are people out there who also have had a lot of losses. I had 2 of my wonderful foster children pass away as adults, one in their 40s, one a little older. And if it wasn't for my spiritual practice, I don't think I could be standing here today. It has meant everything. The practice to knowing the truth, that we are about something big like love, but not the flowers and the heart love, the deep instinctive love that is calling us all the time, reminding us all the time that is the truth. In closing, I'd like to read a prayer. It's the United Farm Workers Prayer. And I'd like to give a little background on it. My mother taught in the migrant camps, preschool to English to children in Gilroy. And her co-worker was 10 years younger and a wonderful person who also passed away last year. And she did so much for the Hispanic community over the years. She helped start that preschool. My mother and her would go to the migrant camps and do home visits. In junior high and high school, I would go and volunteer. And when I went to her memorial service at the senior center, she was not religious, but she was definitely spiritual. And what was exciting about it, it was all these adults who had come from working in the fields to getting an education, being superintendent of schools, being teachers, making a difference. And they attributed it to someone, one person who saw who they were, who saw their capabilities. And that was just amazing. And my mom, she loved her work and loved all the people she worked with. So in closing, I really want to share the United Farm Workers Prayer as the end. Show me the suffering of the most miserable, so I will know my people's plight. Free me to pray for others, for you are present in every person. Help me take responsibility for my own life, so that I can be free at last. Grant me courage to serve others, for in service there is true life. Give me honesty and patience, so that I can work with other workers. Bring forth song and celebration, so that the Spirit will be alive among us. Let the Spirit flourish and grow, so that we will never tire of the struggle. Let us remember those who have died for justice, for they have given us life. Help us love even those who hate us, so we can change the world. Namaste. Thank you.